Man, I'm just working, man.
I know what my audience like. I did some independent films with Master P. A lot of those movies did really well.
I'm ambitious, I'm a hustler. I have my own lane.
That's the thing about comedy. You wake up every day, you don't know if you're funny that day.
Welcome to the program on Let's Go Live with Lamont King. This young lady, she's a academic director of the Community Scholars Program, Georgetown's 50-year-old scholarship program for first-generation low-income students. She has a PhD in American Studies and an MFA, Master's in Fine Arts, in Creative Nonfiction. She teaches writing and African American Lit, and her work has appeared in numerous reputable publications. Please welcome to the program. Can I call you doctor? I call you doctor, right?
Please.
Dr. Alice Sandosharaj. Did I say it right?
Yes, perfect.
How you been?
I've been good. I've been good. Very busy.
Give us a little bit about your background, though. Tell who you are and where you come from.
I was born in D.C. I was actually born in Georgetown Hospital because it was the only place that would accept my parents without health insurance. But I grew up in PG County, Langley Park, Maryland, to be precise. And what else do you want to know? I went to school with you in
Yes,
UMBC.
that's
How
right.
we know each other.
Yeah. Back in the day. Wait a minute, Langley Park. So you went to Northwestern?
No, I went to High Point.
Oh, High Point. Okay, yeah.
High Point, yes.
Okay.
Eagles.
Local, homegrown. That's what's up.
Yes, it was a very interesting experience, and I'm actually very similar to the students that I work with now, which is first gen, low income. Neither of my parents graduated from even high school, so I didn't have a lot of that social capital that we try to deliver to our students in this program. I left college and went on to collect a few more sort of toothless degrees. I probably should have gone to law school. And then I ended up at Howard for a little while. I taught there for several years. It was an awesome experience. It was fantastic. Didn't pay me a ton of money. So I went into the nonprofit sector for a little while, did some consulting, and then realized I love the classroom. So I ended up coming back to Georgetown.
So tell me about your experience at Howard. How long were you there?
I was there for 7 years. I was I was at the English department. I was in the English department. So it was just amazing people, amazing legacy in that department, walking the same offices where Toni Morrison was walking around. It was very, very historic. I got to teach with some amazing people. I learned a lot. I loved my students. It was rewarding to teach students who were very comfortable and interested talking about race, as opposed to in other settings where I've taught, you kind of had to wedge it in there. You had to convince people. At Howard, students were ready to go. They were excited and eager to talk about the things that I'm interested in. So that was really, really rewarding. It was awesome.
And you said it didn't pay well. Why do you think that was? They didn't have a budget? I mean, Howard's expensive. It ain't cheap.
Howard is expensive. I'm never going to badmouth HU. I'm not going to do it. I don't know much about their finances, but I do know that they had a lot of problems with kind of funneling all those tuition dollars into experiences that manifested on the campus for students. But the students themselves were awesome. The people I worked with were awesome. It was just my paycheck wasn't that awesome.
Yeah. And so how did the opportunity to move over to Georgetown, how did that come about?
I left Howard to do some consulting. I worked with a nonprofit called Books at Work, which was basically delivering literature-based programming to executives primarily. We also worked with some other communities and partners, but I tended to work with C-suite level executives and kind of helping them build bonds with each other through reading literature, reading short stories, reading books. And I discovered through that experience that I much preferred working with students who needed me as opposed to CEOs who maybe could get their enrichment elsewhere. I mean, that work was rewarding too. It was awesome in a way, but I just figured I love teaching. I like working with young people, especially young people who haven't had much exposure to people who look like me in the classroom. I can't tell you how many times at Georgetown I'll have students come up to me and say, "You're the first brown woman I've had, in front of the classroom." So that is a very rewarding experience. Wow. I decided to shift to that full time.
Yep. Now, can you speak to the caliber of student, right? So you taught at Howard, you teach at Georgetown. There's always this discussion on whether HBCUs can put out our best and our best and brightest. Um, are they the same type of student? Are they on par with with
Oh,
that
absolutely.
big Ivy League? Because Georgetown is considered Ivy League, correct?
It is Ivy League adjacent.
Adjacent. Okay, yeah.
That we call it peer institutions, but so Georgetown will often refer to itself as a peer institution with other Ivy Leaguers. I don't know if
Right.
Ivy Leaguers consider Georgetown to be on par, but it is an elite institution for sure. It's a very elite PWI. In terms of the caliber of students, Georgetown and Howard had the students themselves are dissimilar in terms of where they come from, and maybe some of the various types of social capital. I mean, it varies. At Howard, you have, very wealthy students, you have very working class students, you kind of have the whole gamut. Whereas at Georgetown, most of the students tend to be white and wealthy, with the exception of the students that I work with primarily. But in terms of intellectual capability, very similar. Howard.
Because they're the ones that they're taking to the streets right now. It's these white kids that are really, spearheading a lot of this activity in the streets right now. Do you think it's genuine?
Oh, 100%. At least the
Mm.
students that I encounter, 100% genuine. Absolutely. They grew up with the internet. They've had so much more exposure to things than you and I did. I mean, we are similar age, in our 40s. Like, that's just a different world to grow up constantly in social media, to have access to the entire world at your fingertips. They are just far more cultured, far more open-minded than our generation was. So yeah, I feel like it's very sincere. I taught a class on the Black autobiography in the spring,
Mm.
and half of my students were white, and we were reading Malcolm X. We were reading some pretty I don't know how I would phrase it. Writing and thinking that is pretty critical of whiteness, right? Just to
Right.
put it lightly. And students were super into it, and they also had a real comfort with the language around talking about race and oppression and injustice. They're all little social justice warriors.
Right. Yeah. Right.
I
That's
know
the
it's
word.
a
That's the
word.
word I was looking for. Yeah.
I know,
SJW.
I know that's not always a positive term, but I think they wear that identity well. They seem to have good intentions. They're very interested in learning more, and they're very comfortable talking about privilege, which, when I was doing my doctoral work, privilege was still kind of a new thing
Hmm.
to explore. And I realize I'm dating myself because that was more than 20 years ago. But
Mm.
yeah, they're super comfortable talking about it. They're very quick to like hold a mirror up to themselves and each other. They're all about like self-reflection and becoming aware of not only what's happening in the world, but their role in terms of the problem. He's the opposite of King. He's a bad guy. He's full of hate. They didn't have that impression because they had no impression really.
Oh, okay. Nope.
Heard about him, so
Right.
his book was their first exposure. And I'll be honest with you, we don't read. I mean, I love Malcolm. I grew up with Malcolm. I have a Malcolm X tattoo. He's a hero of mine. But
Oh, wow.
as you read more, you learn more, you are critical of your heroes. Malcolm could be a little sexist. Malcolm definitely kept some things out of his autobiography, which I would do too. So we read Malcolm critically. We don't read him just as a hero, which is how I grew up viewing him. So I gotta say, it's a challenging course for me to teach too, because I have to kind of take him off the pedestal a little bit. As a feminist, as a writer, all those things. But my students overall are enchanted by him. We watch videos, we watch his speeches. When you get like a sense of Malcolm as this iconic figure who kind of, he sort of lines up with his heroic image in some ways.
Yeah.
In some ways he doesn't, but in other ways he does. You watch him on the screen and you see that charisma, you see that fire.
Electrifying. Yeah.
Oh, and the different ways, right? Like, when he's in Harlem talking to a Black audience, he's this fire. I mean, he's like scratchy voiced. He's got this passion. But then you see him at Oxford, and his voice is like down to octaves.
Measured. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, he sounds like a Cambridge professor, and it's just amazing to watch him construct like his iconic
Because
identity.
even if you put those clips together, he's still like spitting bars. Like he's still punchlines and just it's meticulous.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that's always has been one of my personal favorites. Now you're an academic and you're in academia, and you mentioned how you're a feminist, right? So every 2 or 3 years, like academia changes. Like we get new words and new coded language, and now, we talk about intersectionality,
Yes.
inclusion, and D&I, diversity and inclusion.
D&I.
Yeah.
That's the work I was doing actually when I was in the nonprofit sector's D&I work.
So how do you adjust? Like if you come from, let's say, all right, so you went through training, you went through schooling, you got all the certifications and degrees, but you came from a different mindset before that. But now knowing that that's the environment and that's the atmosphere, how do you make those adjustments?
You're like a Marine. You adapt, you improvise, and you overcome. You keep adding to your body of knowledge. I mean, it is a struggle, I have to say, especially the older I get. I'm like, oh man, I gotta revise my worldview again.
Yeah,
Now,
right,
now this hero sucks in a way that I didn't realize he sucked. And so
right.
it is hard, but it's also the work that we're asking students to do, right? Like I think being wrong is one of the most important experiences you can have. And actually, Malcolm X, reading his book when I was 15 years old, it was actually when Spike Lee's movie came out. I was walking through the grocery store. I was like, here's this $5.99 book. I'll read it. I didn't know who Malcolm was. 3 days later, my whole world had changed.
But so all right, so let's talk about the program that you said
Yeah.
just started. So it's a summer program. Is that for incoming freshmen or?
It's a full scholarship. So it's a 4-year wraparound scholarship program for first generation low income students who tend to be students of color for the most part. And we do try to get in as many Black students in as possible, as well as students from DC. So that was kind of the original goal of the program, was to get more students from DC on Georgetown's campus, because
Oh, okay.
folks felt like it was, we've got this great university in DC, but yet we're servicing, we're providing education to folks outside of the community. So that's how it started, and then it sort of expanded. But it's a full 4-year scholarship. It's a wraparound program. So we provide kind of everything the student needs. So for example, we do a summer program that extends into the fall. And, some students didn't have hotspots or Wi-Fi access or laptops.
Right.
We provided that for students. It's basically just everything that we can give a student so they feel comfortable learning at Georgetown. They feel on par with their classmates. So they, everything is covered. You sometimes have students from California who don't have winter clothes, so we provide them with winter coats. So just everything we can do to provide students a safe place and some social capital so that they can thrive and accomplish things, and also enrich the experience of their classmates, because it's really what we're looking for in terms of the scholarship are students who have shown that they take advantage of every opportunity in their community, whatever that is. So if you're in a real rural place and there aren't a lot of things for you to do, if you can show evidence that you are taking advantage of what is available to you, that to us signals a student who is interested and motivated and would thrive on our campus with support.
What's the name of it again?
The Community Scholars Program.
Community Scholars Program at Georgetown University, and you're the director of the program.
I am the academic director. So
Academic director.
Yeah.
Dr. Alice Sandosharaj, UMBC alum, Langley Park survivor. Unfortunately, went to High Point High School, but hey, it's all good. You made it. I appreciate you stopping by the show.
Thank you for having me. This was super fun.
Yeah, if you want to come back, we'll have you. We'll talk about higher education and some other angles and keep it moving.
Let's do it.
All right. Appreciate you. Have a good one.
Bye.
I don't care if it is a closet. You still looking mad official.